The idea of the clock that never moves might remind some of you of Rick and Morty, right? Doesn't Rick have one of those? A clock that never changes. It's always like, I think, 10 past 2. This one's like 10 past 10. And it's in the other area too. Now, a clock that is stopped has the quality of being better than a broken clock, as was discussed by a British writer many years ago, because a clock that is stopped is right at least twice a day, right? At least twice a day, 10, 11 a.m. and 10, 11 p.m. This clock is correct, whether you know it or not, right? So, the idea of a clock that is fixed in the modern era is slightly different because, first of all, I have recently learned that now many people cannot read the time in my country. May not be the same where you are, but this is apparently what's going on now. So if the clock, we talked about clock towers in Europe, which I've photographed and filmed over the years, and we had a discussion with my friend who went there to a couple of old churches, And so we ended up reading about how in the 15th century, in the Christians' 15th century, the 1400s of the Christian era, common era, computer era is what I like calling it, by the way. They put a lot of tower clocks up. The clock as a concept and the globalism of their genocidal colonialization of the planet created the clock and the day and the time and the everything about that, which now is just in the phone, right? So, and everything is digital, and we can look at that like the typewriter, right? The clock is now apparently to them like the typewriter. Why do I need to? I don't need that, right? And the typewriter has certain value, as I've shown you, because I'm a typewriter. I have been for 45 years. There's certain value there. The commitment in the mind when I go da 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 there, knowing, and of course you have correct tape and white ink, but that's not what we're talking about. Knowing that it's not a word processor that's going to suggest things to me or just underline things that are wrong or all these things that come with word processing, which I also joined obviously as it was coming up. But the thought process that goes through writing there is different. You could even talk about it physically. I have to, if I'm going to write on the computer, I can just wake up, throw the computer up, and just start writing if I wanted. That's perfectly possible for me, and maybe some of that would even be really useful, But this is different. You have to kind of like, there's ribbon on the ink, there's a stack of white paper. There's only so much ribbon on the ink, so you can't just throw away pages, but it happens. Of course it's going to happen. And there's only so much paper. You can replace the paper cheaply, though. It's not that big of a deal. So now you have to think, okay, Jet, you put the thing in, you load it, you set it, you have to now set all your, because typewriting advanced to a certain stage too, right? So you set all the margins, you set everything the way you want it, and now you have a blank piece of paper inside the typewriter. It's not like opening up a file on a computer. It just isn't. And what is happening in my mind at that time, informed as I was by Henry Miller or dozens of the writers I read, because I'm a novelist and I like reading novels, used typewriters, and I did too. I typewrote an entire novel at one point. So typewriting is different in the mind. So if I kind of go, okay, well, I have to have a thought. I have to put the thought into some kind of form. I have to realize that there's punctuation that goes with that form. I have to think about how it's going to look on the page. And then I have to go shift open quote. I'll pick her up, comma, close quote, space, said Jebediah, period. And that happens, as an example, in a two-format process. One is sometimes I can write this. Well, he's got to say that he's going to take her. So, right, all that stuff happens. Composition of the thing, then bang. Now you can't change it, and so then you pause, if you will, more before launching in an improvisational manner directly into the thesis or whatever the heck you're trying to go, wherever you're trying to go. Because on a computer, I can do that. No. Remember when you used to hit the backspace? No. You can change anything you want quickly. The computer, meanwhile, is constantly telling you, that's spelled wrong. Hey, is that sure the right grammar you want? There's constant interruption of your mental process as you're trying to compose using your language. Right? Here I'm using English, which we all treat like a rag doll because now it's just what it is. I mean, we all have to have the English with us to do anything. It is the thing. So, in this case, the example is rather spare and kind of cheap. You could take that, though, deeper. The philosopher Benjamin suggested, don't write anything. You have this thought, don't write anything. His thing was, now I'm going to go like this and think about that. And he would cook that thing in his mind until he couldn't hold any more of the actual words that he wanted to get down. And then he'd go, so there was a kind of distance and then an automation. And that composition he thought of as not doing things, but he's actually doing things in the mind. It's sort of like not writing, but it is writing. So we got to this point because handwriting has all but disappeared now. And I know a woman whose handwriting is exceptional. Oh my God. She has worked on it her whole life. And it is art. Okay? That's a personal friend. So I'm not going to tell you more about her. But it is art to receive anything from her. Now, if you send me something that you have used the latest software to make look cool and and you send it to me, and it was sitting next to something from her, I would say, that's art, that's design. Now, somewhere in the last 30 years, as we shifted to the digital generation and became Homo sapiens sapiens use typewriters, Homo sapiens digitalis, and this thing, a lot of that stuff is going out the window. The whole mechanisms are going out the window, and certain types of thinking are going out the window, and it's a much more ephemeral, and commitment, like ton, is out, and recooking, respinning is in, and referential. Everything's referential. If you want popularity, you make it referential. Thus, the algorithm can hook to it, right? Or whatever mechanism. Audiences can go, oh yeah, I watched that show. You know, I wrote that piece about Chat GPT, which you should check out my little thing about just being a user, like an art user. I was thinking if I was in high school and I was in art class and some teacher said, oh, the school is paid for Chat GPT, you can use that. Go make something, what would I do? And I started with that in mind and I spent 3 months there doing that. Didn't do many, just did a few simple things. And you can read that piece to see an extension of this sort of idea. Where we began was to talk about